Welcome to Guernsey Bunker.
Oh, you sure will I?
I'm Greg. We've got a very special guest tonight, an esteemed author and bunker guru of sorts. And Paul, over to you, mate. What are you
Well,
talking about tonight?
firstly, I think we ought to review these books because they're by this esteemed guest. Right. Ernie's first book was German Fortifications in Guernsey, published in 1997 and revised in 2001. Do you want to just show the cover of that, Greg? If anybody wants to get a copy of this book, you'd have to go on the secondary market because they're out of print, very very difficult to get hold of. Maybe you pick one up on eBay or Amazon. That was your first book, I think,
That was my first book, yeah.
which is just bunkers.
And then I was a bit more ambitious.
Yes. We got that, Greg.
You brought this out in '97,
97, that one, yeah.
better introduce it, mate. You've got to say who's talking here on the side.
This is we'll introduce our special guest this week. This is Ernie Gavey, who knows every single thing about every single bunker on Guernsey anyway, and tunnels, and artifacts, anything to do with the Germans. Ernie knows about it, but he's written these fantastic books. The second book is the German tunnels in Guernsey, Alderney and Sark, which was published in 2012. You can still buy this book. It retails at $15.95. You can buy it in my museum or any of the other museums on the island. But this is an absolutely wonderful book. It's just on tunnels, on what was left in them, all the plans of them, photographs. Absolutely fantastic book. Do you want to show the bottom of that cover of that book, Greg? Let's say you can buy that book now, but you won't. You can buy it in retail now. The other one is impossible to get hold of retail. But the good news, the German bunker one, is going to be republished about 3 times the size next year. This is Ernie's best book so far. It's going to have every bunker and all the plans and all the photographs of inside, outside, you name it. It's going to be wonderful. So how long have you been doing that, Ernie?
Probably about 6 years, I think, now.
Well, basically since you finished the tunnel one,
Yeah.
you started on the bunker
Yeah, we
one.
started again on the fortification book. There's been a few sort of stalls along the way where we've been involved with other things, and it's been put on the side for 6 months at a time or whatever. But we are now pretty well on the final straight, and we're hoping to have it ready for printing just after Christmas sometime. And launch it in May for the 75th anniversary of the Rising.
Well, that'd be a good time to push it. So do you reckon you've located all the bunkers on Guernsey?
I wouldn't like to say we've located all of the bunkers. Things do still turn up.
What's just personnel things or what?
Yeah, a lot of the smaller personnel shelters that were built in the back garden of houses that the Germans occupied. The small defence works, the brooks and mortar pits and such like that were easy to fill in and bury after the war. There must still be quite a bit lurking out there that we haven't come across. They sometimes turn up if there's a building project going on or whatever. But
what about using the World War II RAF aerial reconnaissance photos? you pick anything up out
You
of
can
those?
pick up off of them, but a lot of the later ones, the camouflage is so good on many of the fortifications
Oh, yes, of course.
that all you can see is a slight shadow. And it's very difficult to tell exactly what you're looking at times.
Mm.
We have located quite a bit off of them, but they certainly don't give the whole picture. And of course, they were taken from a very great height.
Yeah. Who took all these? The RAF and the Americans?
It was a bit of both, I think.
Yeah. So did they, why didn't they sort of bomb some of the fortifications and that?
One of the biggest problems in Guernsey was the fact that all of the fortifications were so close to civilian population.
Mm.
You didn't have to be very far out with your accuracy on your bombing, and you'd probably have taken out civilians and completely missed the fortification sites.
Yeah. Yeah, the skill of precision bombing today wasn't the same in those days, was
Yeah,
it?
it wasn't.
Just chuck it out and hope for the best.
So yeah, I mean, those civilians sort of living right on the boundary lines of the batteries in many cases.
Mm. So basically, the British and the Allies didn't understand what was on the
They
island.
knew exactly what was here.
What about tunnels? How could they take photographs of tunnels?
Well, the tunnels, they knew they were being worked on. There were a number of escapes from the islands.
Mm-hmm.
So, and after D-Day, of course, they freed many of the workers that had previously worked on fortifications in the Channel Islands as the Allies moved through France.
So
So
hang on, where did the workers go from here
they
then?
were taken back to strengthen the fortifications on the French coast.
Oh, yeah, back
So as
to
the French coast was liberated, those workers were freed,
Mm.
and they could give a lot of information to the Allies on what was in the islands because they'd built it.
Well, these
Effectively.
were forced labourers,
Yeah,
not slave workers as such.
mainly forced workers.
Mm. So they were quite skilled, some of them, building bunkers. And
The,
that, weren't
the thing with building a bunker is, apart from digging a big hole to put it in and shoveling concrete, most of the other jobs are quite skilled. You need skilled carpenters, you need skilled steel erectors,
This was the carpenters who did all the shuttering
and
and,
do all the shuttering.
build it that way.
And then you need the steel erectors to put all the
Well,
reinforcing
where did
together.
I mean, there was tons and tons of steel went into these bunkers. Where did they get the steel from?
Everything came across from France.
So obviously after D-Day, we got
After
made a fortress. Nothing came in.
nothing came in, so a few odd jobs continued here and there with what materials they still had on Ireland. But very little was done after that because they had no materials to do it with.
Mm. I think the museum we've got down at the Valette, that never got finished because from the stories we've heard from there was a Spanish labourer that was still living over here, reckoned that they took the labourers from that site to do, improve the fortifications on the harbour
Mm.
because that was a sort of more important and
Yeah, it was
strategic.
whatever the priorities became
Yeah.
after that time, effectively.
So really, after D-Day, do you reckon there was no real construction of bunkers and stuff, or guns,
A few
kits or
bits were
anything?
the priorities were being finished off, I think,
Mm.
and a few bits seemed to move around. We know, for instance, that the harbour's turrets, when the 6 loophole turrets appeared up at Battery Dolman,
Mm.
but with no concrete, it was just the turrets sat there. So they were obviously just trying to make do and strengthen defences with what was available on the island by then. But
Yeah.
presumably no concrete really could have been poured because there was no cement supplies or anything.
So from what you've sort of learnt about the occupying forces, they must have realised after D-Day things were going a bit pear-shaped for them, eh?
I think most of the average your man in the street type of soldiers knew that the writing was on the wall.
Mm.
But they didn't dare say that they knew the writing was on the wall. And as far as they were concerned, it was a lot easier life to be sat here in Guernsey
Yeah.
than it was to be fighting somewhere else.
Mm.
So I think they just basically sat back and bided their time. Okay, food was short, but no one was shooting at them every day.
But they didn't get sort of like regular mail or anything
No,
come
I
in.
think probably one of the hardest things for the German troops here in that last 9 months of the war was not knowing what was happening with their families and such like at home.
No, I interviewed a chap that was stationed here on a small Skoda battery up on the top of Basel. There were Skoda guns, and his only concern and his friends was what's happened, because they lived on the Prussian border, which then became Poland after the war, and they had not a clue what was going on, if their family had been killed or anything. Although they still could get some messages out through the naval radio station, couldn't they?
Yeah, but I think it was only really priority.
They couldn't send personal messages.
No, I mean that was virtually direct contact to
Went to
command in Berlin, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it went via Wilhelmshaven, didn't it? I
Hmm.
think.
So that was purely a naval direct communication route.
They still allowed flights in after Fortress. After it became Festung, the German flights could still come in.
Yeah, I think it just got more and more difficult as the Allies got more advanced along the coastline of France and further inland. It was just getting harder and harder to find the safe routes to fly here.
Yeah. So really, the heyday of the bunkers was what, in sort of 42, 43?
Yeah, I mean the artillery batteries was where it started in 41.
Well, the coastal defence.
The coastal artillery, such as up here at Cherbourg.
But the one thing I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the coastal batteries were manned by Kriegsmarine and Luftwaffe people, weren't
Um, you had Kriegsmarine, such as up here.
they? Why naval personnel
Because it
doing
was
bunkers?
supposed the Channel Islands was supposed to have been a naval fortress. There was supposed to have been a big naval base. The plan after Hitler won the war was to turn the islands into one major naval base.
Ah.
That's why you were getting, submarine refueling facilities, everything else being planned into it. Because their idea was that by having control of the Channel Islands and putting modern long-distance weapons here, they were in complete control of the shipping lanes out in the Channel.
Ernie, why didn't they develop the airfield more? Because it was quite a rudimentary airfield.
They had plans to. The German maps will show an extra runway being put in running up towards the northwest, but it never got any further than the planning stage.
But you'd think that the Luftwaffe would be a sensible sort of adjunct to all of the infrastructure that they put here. Why do you think that they didn't develop that? Was it because the Luftwaffe was too busy pursuing other theatres of war?
I think probably it was a very good plan at the start, but after the Battle of Britain, I think their priorities, as you say, probably moved elsewhere, and it was just all put on hold until a better opportunity arose.
Yeah, but I mean, all through the war, we were being monitored by the RAF and a little the Americans. There were planes coming over daily, taking photographs, seeing what was going on. They knew exactly what was happening day by day here. So if you had a whole load of aircraft parked up there, they would have sent a load of bombers and squashed them.
You think if they put so much effort into the hardened structures here that be a little bit more, air support.
Yeah,
some
I
sort of
think the airfield works were in phase 2 of the defence building programme. Because there was also a massive tunnel planned. Well, I think it would have been a cut and cover job, where you just dug a big hole, built the thing, and then put the earth back on top. But it's shown just to the south at the top of Petty Bow. And it's a big area that it covers. And I think the idea of that was to have underground workshops for the airfields. It may even have been underground hangarage and such like provided there. But it was all phase 2 of the fortification building, which never began. At the end of the day, they never really finished phase 1.
But there was no plans at any stage to bring their so-called secret weapons, V1s and V2s, or anything like that here. This was all too late for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it ended up, what they built here, really, in a lot of cases, using pretty obsolete weapons.
Well, second front stuff.
Purely defence of the islands in the end, wasn't it? And having guns here tended to mean you could defend part of the French coast less heavily. It cut that triangle of the Bay of St Malo off by having the guns here. So it proved effective in that sense. Bear in mind, a lot of the guns were pretty well obsolete, as were the 22-centimetre sliders up here.
Mm.
And even the French had given up hope on them.
Yeah.
And a few of them blew up.
Well, we lost 2 up here, I think.
Yeah.
They. But we had a number of over here. They're all First World War.
Yeah.
The Renault.
The Renault FT-17s in the end, they used to take the turrets off and mount the turrets onto work pits because the tanks were that useless. There was absolutely no point in using them. They broke down all the time.
They're only about the size of a smart car.
Well, you've seen the FT-17 tank turrets, they're only about like that. You just stick your head in them.
Mm.
The tanks were absolutely useless.
And then he took a machine gun.
Yeah.
And it wasn't exactly firepower. But they had Charbis here as well.
They had the Charbis and they had the flame-throwing version of the Charbis.
Where were they stationed then?
You had a tank park off the Forest Road.
They used to do tank exercises up here at Cherbourg, didn't they?
Yeah, that could well have been the ones I was thinking from Forest Road. It was at St Martin's end of the forest there. Couldn't have been that far to pop up here, really, would it?
No, not really. So what are you going to carry on diving down bunkers and things?
To be quite honest, I don't do a great deal now. I've left it mainly to the younger lads in Feston.
You should talk about some of the amazing restoration projects that Ernie has spearheaded in the last 30, 40 plus years here on the island. Could you mention a few of those? Because if people do come to Guernsey, it would be great if they can walk through spaces that you've toiled into to make
Well, you've been involved with the Malta down at Fulton,
No.
No.
No. The casemate I was involved with right from the day we opened it to the day
when was that started?
We opened it in May '93 and we restored it. It took 2 years and it was open to the public for 50th in May '95.
Where did the 10.5 gun come from?
It came from Jersey. It was the one that was at the Fret Point.
So they're basically the same casemate, but
Identical casemate, yeah.
So where did you find all the electrics and everything to fit it out?
We were very, very lucky. We opened up about 20 bunkers in all to salvage bits and pieces to do that one. But one of the bunkers we opened was an identical casemate at Fortnum Auctions on Lone Press.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, all the big bits are gone. The doors, the ventilation plant. But all the small fittings were still in there. All the pressure feed release valves, the fuse boxes, the entire telephone system, from the black intake boxes, battery box, telephone, and the lightning fuse box, and all the cabling was intact, and we unbolted the whole lot and put it straight into the one at Fort Humay.
Brilliant.
All the cable clips in Fort Humay came out of that bunker. And that was the biggest boost we had through the whole restoration.
So what was your next big one, the tower?
And then the tower had already been sort of semi-restored. It had been given a coat of paint. It was virtually empty at that point.
Yeah, I can remember it being pretty sparse.
And basically I turned around to Richard when we'd finished at Fort Humay and said, well, people are visiting the tower now, and there's just nothing much to see after they've been to Fort Humay on the Saturday. They're going to the tower on Sunday, and to be honest, they expect to see the same standard of restoration.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the other problem we had at the tower is we used to have 3 people manning it, because there was nothing on the intermediate levels. Everyone used to go in, straight up the stairs, and queue to go up on the roof. And you constantly, you had to have one person at the bottom of the ladder and one at the top all the time. So what I was thinking was, if we put interpretation and equipment back of all the intermediate levels, people are going to stop, they're going to look at what's there. And it will spread the same number of people over all 5 levels. And it made one huge difference to operating it. It took some doing to find the equipment, but it was well worth it.
But that tower is a standard sort of observation tower. The one that they destroyed, the Chewy quarry, was that identical?
All the upper levels were identical, but it has an extra lower level basement.
What that was used for then?
It's storage, I would assume. I have absolutely no idea why it has it.
I can't recall ever going in it. Was there anything left in it?
No.
It had been stripped
It
completely.
had been stripped to the last nut and bolt.
Still a shame pushing it.
Yeah, it should never have
dump
been
it.
allowed to do that. But
What was it like growing up here when you were a kid? How much of the bunker material was still intact, or had the great scrap metal drive? You know,
a lot of it had gone in the scrap metal drive, to be fair. But because they did the scrap metal drive in such a hurry, sometimes bunkers got buried before the scrap men had finished. And they were leaving bits. On a Friday afternoon, they probably all was, oh, there's half a dozen doors left to cut. I'll leave them, let's go to the pub or whatever, and just left them. And you'll find maybe a door with one hinge cut off and the other one's still on. They just walked out and left it. The Monday, they'd gone off and started somewhere else. And you have weird setups where things have been half removed and just left there.
What about all the timber fittings? Because all of these bunkers had, as you've shown me, the stools. They've had the cupboards. They've had lining on the walls. They've had K98 racks. Where did this all wind up? Was it thrown on the wood heap or repurposed into homes?
Some of it, like the rifle racks and such like, probably went to firewood with the locals, to be quite honest with you. The cupboards and all the useful stuff was auctioned off by the British authorities. There's an awful lot of stuff that was auctioned off. And even things like the barbed wire stakes lots and off in bundles, which is why you see them around fields everywhere.
They weren't there originally.
No. Just not in most instances, they've been banged in the wrong way up with a spike downwards and the base is still up in the air, haven't they?
Yeah.
And it's purely the farmers bought them at auction.
Talking about auctions, in one of the old papers of the time, just after the end of the occupation, there was a massive horse sale with 200 or 300 horses going under the hammer. Now, I heard that there were no horses left on the island and that they'd all been eaten. Is this a furphy? What was?
No, they shipped because they had so much of this First World War equipment. Gun limbers, which are like a trailer that pulls the gun. They were horse drawn, but you had to have big horses to pull these things. I mean, you can imagine this big iron wagon, gun behind that as well. You need 2 big horses to pull those.
Were these horses?
They were French.
In Guernsey at the end
No,
of the
no.
occupation, or they were
Oh yeah. I can remember when I was young. I can remember the last German horse dying.
So the story that there were no horses at the end of the occupation.
Oh no, they were all the
French
ones.
There were probably no civilian ones.
Okay, so there were
work
many,
horses.
many
Work
work
horses.
horses still left on the
Work
island
horses
that
were
hadn't been
essential.
eaten because
No,
people
they
were
had to.
starving.
They're big wagons. They used to pull around. It was all horse drawn because, as I say, most of their equipment was from the Great War. They bring it over from France. No use to the front line troops, horse drawn stuff. So they shipped really the junk here, obsolete items, and they suddenly ended up, they needed a load of horses. So they brought these big French horses over. I mean, they're massive. You still see around farms and that the horseshoes. They're massive things, not really big.
So at the end of the occupation, there were still hundreds of horses still working horses on the island.
Oh yeah.
The German ones, yeah.
And so when you were growing up on the island, it must have been an amazing place for both of you growing up here.
Well, the horses were dead. We're not that old.
Not talking about horses, but just exploring bunkers and going in after places perhaps unspoilt by scrap metalists. What's one of the most interesting things that you've found, as a young fella scouring the bunkers?
I suppose like all youngsters that were interested in our age group, it was going into St Saviour's Tunnel. The amount of equipment that was in there was just absolutely, piled high to the roof. A tunnel that's getting on 5 metres high and the stuff piled up high up to the roof. You had to clamber over German equipment to get in there. It was absolutely amazing.
Everything you can think of. It was all sort of ammunition orientated stuff, helmets, not so much personal equipment, radio stuff. It was more ammunition cans, gun parts, anything you can think of in that line. There was in the first tunnel, if you remember, there was a chassis of a half track. You had to climb over that. It was just
bases of radar units and all sorts in there. Field kitchens, gun limbers.
So that often seen image of German equipment, weapons being dumped down at St Peter Port, that was a fraction of what was still left in situ in some of the tunnels. Was the reason it wasn't dragged down? Why were there still weapons?
Well, it wasn't good scrap. Ammunition cans, for instance, were pretty tinny things. So that wasn't what you classify as good scrap. When the scrap dealers came over, they wanted the cream of the scrap. Heavy guns, they didn't want tinny things. These doors like you've got in this bunker, they're solid lumps.
Yeah, it was all white, wasn't it? Really,
tons,
they wanted.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
And as time went on and things, they were running out of the big stuff, they started going for the smaller stuff.
But there wasn't many tunnels. It was St Saviour's was absolutely stuffed. But
The Boet had a lot in.
yeah, but
Initially, the Boet had a huge amount. You look at that photo we've got in the tunnel book,
yeah,
that central entrance, and you can just see that the back of that tank stuck out from an absolute mountain of stuff piled in there. But they were just very thorough in clearing a lot of that out.
yeah. No, but up till recently there was searchlights and field kitchens and gun limbers in there.
Mm.
They were getting a bit.
But it's still there, still sat there. Most
Yeah,
of it.
they were getting a bit rough now. But there wasn't many other tunnels they used to store things in. The hospital had nothing in it.
No.
That was emptied out.
The aquarium had stuff in, didn't it?
I can remember going in there when I was a kid,
Mm.
and there was loads of stuff in there.
That was cleared quite late, I believe, wasn't it? The aquarium,
Oh,
I
well
remember
after the scrap drives, in
Yeah.
the late 40s and early
Yeah.
50s.
that was
Well,
about it, because HO3 at the Valdez, that was used for that unclaimed furniture store,
Mm.
46. So that never had anything in it. The Lancey never had anything in it.
And the one off Grand Maison Road?
Mm.
No.
You talked about the tower earlier, how you restored multiple levels in order to manage traffic and turn into a magnificent museum or exhibit. But I've never seen so many bunker stoves or bunker ovens in my life. There must be 7.
8.
There are 8 bunker stoves, and all in pretty well beautiful condition.
Yeah.
And all the associated pipework.
That was a quest to find that lot and put it together.
Well, how on earth did you track that down? Because bunker stoves have become the sort of unobtainium of bunker enthusiasts around the world.
Mm.
If anybody ever replicates that, they'll sell a million. But how did you cobble together 8
That
bunker stoves?
that was very difficult. I think Richard had 2 decent ones and a third not that good.
I let him have one.
One we found. We opened up a personnel shelter down at Langcrest one New Year's Eve after the pub, midnight. As we used to do things like that many years ago. And the bunker had been stripped, and we couldn't believe it. There was a perfectly good bunker stove sat right in the middle of the crew room that someone had obviously unbolted, and for some reason then has left it there.
Well, they're darned heavy, huh?
So we managed to winch it up the earth slope and get it out and salvage that one, so we let Richard have that one. There's a little tiny personnel shelter in the garden of the house up at Guernsey. The shelter had been filled up almost to the roof with earth at some point. But the slope pipe was still there, disappearing into the earth.
But I mean, they needed those stoves on an heavy level. I mean, it must have been pretty cold.
Yeah. Anyway, we dug down, followed this pipe, and the stove was attached to it in that shelter. That was another one. And it took a while, but we managed to find 8.
And all your telephones, bunker telephones, every
A
level's
couple
got.
of them we had to get from Holland in the end. We just couldn't get them all here. We had to do an exchange with a collector over in Holland for a few bits and bobs. He came over and we had a couple of things he wanted.
Yeah, these type of telephones, aren't they?
I've seen a bunker phone with 2 windows instead of 1 window. What was that all about?
I don't know. I don't really understand the full technicalities of the phone systems.
Some have a dial on the front. There was various models.
Some of the ones for command bunkers and that are more sophisticated than the ones purely for the normal bunkers. I mean, normal bunker, all you've got is a line in and maybe a couple of extensions within the bunker. But command bunkers, where you've got, even like the tower, where you've got multiple phones because you've got a direct line back to the battery that you're observing for. You may well have a line direct somewhere else, you know, to another observation post.
But
And it gets more complicated, but a lot of bunker, they're just the simple ones. But I do not understand all the, when it comes to electrical wiring and such like, forget it. It's black art to me.
It might be a question for Charlie, the bunker guru in France. He's very complete knowledge of those systems. We'll have to get him out here sometime.
So what's your next project then, Ernie? You can't retire.
I've got nothing planned at the moment, to be honest. I mean, next year we'll see the book finished and published. I don't know, something will turn up probably.
You-
I said I'm not restoring any more motorcycles, so I'll probably get bored and have to do something. I don't know what.
Has the way you restore a bunker changed, you know, over the decades? Are you doing it differently today or more recently than you did
No,
20 years ago?
no, the idea is if you're going to do a restoration, you try and put it back as near as you possibly can to how it's supposed to be. I mean, I like to come into a bunker that's still got much of the original markings, details, screws that tell you where the wiring went, everything. And before you put a paintbrush near anything, you record it all, you paint it, and then you find the bits and put it back.
Do you think the states will ever, you know, recognise the heritage value of so many of these, you know, bunker sites that are still on states' land that are deteriorating? You know, Chris Shaw, the concrete engineer, spoke about the need for remedial, you know, work with some of the bunkers.
I don't think the money or the will is there. They're happy that Feston Guernsey have taken on some of the more important sites and they're doing something with them. But the states themselves, I don't see ever doing it. I mean, it would be too hard for them. They haven't got the expertise themselves. You know, it is quite specialist doing bunker restoration with it.
The new book that's coming out, will there be sections in that chronicle your expertise, your knowledge, your understanding?
No, it's purely as the original was. It is purely a guidebook. But the main difference between the new one and the old one is that this one is going to have a lot more photographs, modern photographs of bunkers. There's an awful lot more detail on the types the bunkers are, because anywhere through Europe, people interested in German fortifications use the type numbers of bunkers to identify them, whereas in Guernsey we don't, because the Germans never did. Everywhere else they do, so I'm including all the type numbers where appropriate this time. And it's just going to be a much more refined version of the original, bearing in mind that the original was written on Windows 3.1 in the middle of the 1990s. And you had no photo editing capabilities or anything at that time. So this time, it's obviously going to be a lot more professional, shall we say.
Well, is that a Clearview Publishing?
No.
Who's the principal publisher of that?
I don't know who you're going to use this time.
It was Guernsey Armories.
The original one was Guernsey Armories.
So it'll be through Guernsey Armories again. But who I use to actually print it and such like, we haven't decided yet. There's so much choice now because you can just email the whole thing to a printer, laid out, and they just print it for you. As in those days, we had to get proofs of it, we had to do all sorts the old-fashioned way.
One thing's always confused me, really, but the Germans they had code names for everything. I mean, like a gun battery would be called wolf or elephant or strange things. What, what was the idea of all these codes then? Because the actual soldiers didn't understand them much. Because when I tried to locate that chap's field battery that he used to work on, I said, well, you have to give me this code. He says, I never knew there was a code. He'd been there, stationed there 2 years, and he didn't even know what
I
it's called.
suppose it was the German High Command. They liked everything to be. You know,
Well,
for
what
any
did it-
messages that were transmitted from here, if you're working on so-and-so gun battery, you're working on battery Lux or battery Wolf, rather than
Then say
name it after the
location.
site.
Yeah,
Because
location.
if you think the early batteries were quite often named after where they were. For instance, you had flat batteries, Ahurio and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was then changed to something else. I can't remember what it was.
Battleships and things, shuttles. Yeah.
Well, I think that was done purposely so that when they were communicating back to Europe with information, they're not giving away what battery effectively they're working on.
Yeah.
But
That
the
makes sense.
soldier on site wouldn't have had a clue.
No, this chap, poor chap, he was I think he was 18 when he was here, and I said, you must know the name of your battery. He says, no, didn't have a clue. When I told him what it was,
It's like it's
it didn't mean anything to him.
It's another military thing, isn't it? Soldiers when told what they need to know.
Yeah. He was a farrier. I mean, he just worked on these horses.
They weren't told a single detail unless they needed to know it. It was important.
No, it's interesting though.
Yeah. Yeah, everything was coded, wasn't it?
So when they going to really open up everything? Do you reckon over here we're going to be allowed to go into all the sites? Do you think? Because the states own a lot of stuff, don't they?
Yeah, you know what?
What are some of the great things that are locked up at the moment that the states own? The Samson tunnel system.
No, that's private, isn't it?
Well, part of it belongs partly to the parish. It's under the park. And partly it's the entrances are privately owned.
Who owns the Rougeval then?
The states own the central entrance and the top south entrance.
Well, where's collapsed? Who owns that piece?
That, apart from the very, very entrance, falls under all the people in the housing estate above, in sections. The properties above all built over it.
Do you think there's anything buried in there?
There's still pretty sound sort of assurances that there's still the garden and the tank in there, the flame tank that was left in there.
Which one? The Renault?
No, the Shrubby. They're pretty sure that there is one in there.
But the problem is, if you try to take that out, the housing will stay.
It's going to disappear, isn't it?
It's worth a gamble.
Yeah. So I don't think you'd ever get to it.
That's very sad, isn't it? That'd be wonderful to have a Sharby tank, a local one.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's now practically impossible to ever get into that section of Solihull.
Do you think there's anything else hidden around that we don't know about?
Not a lot. Nothing major, I don't think. Not now. I think we've pretty well delved into virtually every major bunker there is over the years. I think most of the bits and pieces that are left that haven't been looked at since just after the war now, I think they are probably the smaller reinforced field order type bits and that.
Mm.
You know, I don't think there's anything big to find.
So what's your opinion of these people? People talk about the slave workers being buried in the concrete and all that. Do you feel there's any truth in that at all?
I'm not in bunkers because you can't bury anything because the amount of reinforcing in there. It's an absolute impossibility. The only time that a worker would have been buried would have been if the tunnel had collapsed while they were working on it. It was deemed too unsafe to recover the bodies, as I believe happened at the Underground Hospital. Other than that, I mean, it just wasn't an option. You can't bury something in the concrete. I mean, you've got reinforcing rods, what, about 10, 15 centimetres apart, all the way through in a mesh.
So that's a non-starter. Really.
No.
What about up in Alderney? Do you know? There seems to be a bit of controversy about their concentration camp and that.
Well, we don't really know what happened in Alderney, do we?
No.
That's the thing. And there's no way of knowing, so I bet those records didn't survive the war.
No. But
So
again, they must have moved some of those the forced labourers back to.
they must have gone back to Europe
Yeah.
before the end of the war.
So they must have stories to tell.
Whether it all just disappeared into the classified files, we'll never know, I suppose.
What's the limitation on that? 50 years or 100 years or whatever?
Of course, the other thing is there could be records lurking somewhere. I mean, there may still be bits in the German records, but the German records are so vast and so much of it isn't catalogued that you could spend a few lifetimes trying to find what you wanted in amongst it. A lot of the Channel Island material that's been found, it's been more by luck.
Well, I think the Silt camp was a satellite camp from Neuengamme in Germany, wasn't it? So one could perhaps trace back through that way, but this time, thousands of pages of documents to go through, all in German.
Yeah, you need pretty good German to do that.
And
I say a lifetime to sit going through archives, effectively.
There's a documentary coming out in another month or so, not on BBC, on ITV, about the Guernsey bunkers and Hitler's island madness, so to speak. And they're playing up the idea that there was some secret agenda associated with the island and why it was so heavily fortified. But Ernie, have you ever heard anything that would lend credence to the idea that this had anything more to do with strengthening the Western Wall than we've been led to believe?
The idea, I think, during the war was, one, it meant that quite a long section of French coast could be defended less heavily. It allowed for free movement of German convoys behind the protection of the islands through the Bay of St. Malo. And Hitler's long-term aim was to make it a massive marine base, Kriegsmarine base. So he could have controlled the channel.
So it wasn't a complete stupid idea just to grab a piece of British soil.
It worked good.
He did have a long-term plan.
For the propaganda point of view, the long-term thing was it meant they had a nice big naval base slap bang in the English Channel.
Makes sense.
And then it really does make sense as to why you had all the storage tunnels and facilities and such like here. Just bear in mind, a lot of the artillery batteries and that were here. After the war, they would have been strapped. The guns up here at Joburg, they would never have been retained long term. You know, they were First World War Guns, they were virtually scrapped by the time of the Second World War. Those 10.5s that we had at Fort Honey, I mean, they were only First World field guns.
When you see the ammunition they used over here, well, I'm sure when you restored the bunker at the 10.5, you put in large collection of shells.
Mm.
If you look on the bottom of the shell, it gives you all the factory details and a date.
Yeah.
And their dates are like 1908 and things like that. First World War dates.
Yeah.
I mean, these okay, the shell was probably has been reused, recycled, but it's really out of date stuff, isn't
Well,
it?
I mean, the other problem, of course, with those 10.5s, when you look at them, if you look at the barrels sat up at the museum, they're very, very short barrels. They haven't got the muzzle velocity to take a decent armour-piercing shell or anything. So in the field, by the Second World War, they'd be useless. They'd been all right for sinking those landing craft as a coast defence gun. They'd been pretty scary.
Mm.
But they weren't a lot of use for anything else. That's why they were taken off their carriages and casemated. But I can't see them having survived that long if the Germans had won the war and they'd been developing new guns.
No.
I bet something an awful lot more efficient would have been sat in that bunker.
Now they got the lid off to put it in.
Mm.
Would be a difficult proposition.
Mm. So, should we have some music next? No? Are we stuck on this bit?
I think we're going to say thanks very much, Ernie. Magnificent having you here. Thank you. Good on you, mate.
Yep.
Really appreciate it.
Maybe you can come back again and have a yarn.
Yeah, I'll probably have to do a song. Do a quick one here because it's my son's 15th birthday. So I might sing him happy birthday and we'll shut it down for the night.
Okay, no worries. Pass the earplugs.
Thanks for Thanks for tuning in to Guernsey Bunker. Good on you, Ernie. Thanks for coming. Looking forward to that new book.
You're welcome.
It's going to be a cracker. And same bat channel, same bat time next week. This is for Elvis.
This is your son.
I'll be singing, okay? We're singing happy birthday for my son Elvis, right?
I'll give that a miss, I think.
I think, yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Elvis. Happy birthday.